all social media outreach at the Rio Plus 20 UN conference, with a campaign that reached over 82 million people through over 1.6 billion tweet views on Twitter alone. He also worked with civil society organizations, civil society coordination team for the Rio Plus 20 Secretariat, helping facilitate the engagement of over 10,000 civil society participants in the largest and most socially inclusive conference in the history of the UN. I'd like to welcome Mr. Romano on the podium, and he will introduce all the other panelists for this session.
Great, thanks so much for that wonderful introduction. I gotta say, I've moderated a few panels before, but this is the first panel that I've moderated from the General Assembly from this podium. I feel kind of less like a moderator, more like a supreme leader, but we'll see how this goes. I'd like to introduce our wonderful panel that we have today. Again, it's on communicating your message. You've been here for the past few days learning how to refine your message, whatever your message may be, and drive change in a variety of arenas. So we're going to talk about today with this panel is how you take what you've learned here and your experiences here and elsewhere, and your passions and your work and your message, and how you take all of this and share it with your audience and the rest of the world. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce our panel of experts on this topic. To my right, we have Rehema Ellis. Rehema is an education correspondent for NBC News, and her reports appear on NBC Nightly News with Brian Williams, Today, and MSNBC. Rehema has received numerous awards throughout her career, including local and national Emmys, Edward R. Murrow Awards, Associated Press Awards, and awards from the National Association of Black Journalists. Welcome, Rehema. We have with us Lance Gould. Lance is the Executive Special Projects Editor at the Huffington Post and oversees the Post blog platform. He was previously the editor-in-chief of both the Boston Phoenix and Spy magazine, and was deputy managing director of the New York Daily News, and was general manager of the UN publication Earth Summit Times. Welcome, Lance. We have Nathalie Leroy with us today, too. Nathalie is the chief of the Education Outreach Section for the UN Department of Public Information. Before joining DPI, she helped launch the UN Academic Impact Initiative in 2010 and has worked with the UN for many years on developing knowledge management strategies all around the UN system. Welcome, Nathalie. And finally, we have Bill Oberlander, who's the Managing Director for Communications, Marketing, and Events at the Robin Hood Foundation, one of New York's largest poverty-fighting nonprofit organizations. We're very familiar with them around here. Throughout his career, Bill's led many marketing campaigns for the likes of Target, Intel, Nikon, Estee Lauder, MasterCard, Nestle, and the list goes on and on. So welcome, Bill. So with that, we'll get right into it. So we'll start with you first, Rehema. So you've been everywhere. You've covered everything through your work at NBC, through traditional media outlets like television and online journalism. But a lot of the work that you've been doing is focused a lot on education and young people. So tell us what your experience has been like dealing with these issues and how young people can harness traditional media outlets to get their message out there.
Well, good morning, first of all. And I want to say thank you for allowing me to be here. But I'm going to stand up for a second, and I'm going to stand up and step down. Because here's how you get people's attention. You do something different. Do something different. Walk around the room and find somebody to tweet you. You're tweeting. I was asking earlier, what is the hashtag for this event? Maybe it's hashtag UN. That's how you get people's attention. And what you want to do is have something to say. Have you got something to say? Yes? Am I getting your attention? One of the things that I find out as I go into classrooms all across the country, and I've been in classrooms around the world, is that they're getting the attention of young people. You taking notes? Yes. And why? Because you have a message to communicate So the question becomes I love it. You know I love a microphone. The question becomes, how will you communicate your message? It was asked earlier, how many of you tweet? How many of you tweet? Do you know that the average age of the people who tweet, I had a note up here, something like 54 years old. Surprise? But it's also a lot of you. And I'm sitting next to a man with Huffington Post. I did a story not so long ago about a woman who talked about the photographs of her children. And I had a line that said she was everywhere in their lives, but nowhere in their pictures. She was always taking the pictures, but she was never in them. She had a beautiful blog that was written on Huffington Post, and in no time, she got 6 million people looking at what she had written and made them think, am I in my children's pictures? One person wrote in that they had 4,000 pictures of their children, and they had to dig through 4,000 pictures before they could find one that they were in with their children. The potential to reach people is enormous. What I'm finding out in my studies, going all around this country about education, is you have power right at your fingertips. You can get people to pay attention to you. You can communicate a message. That's about all I'm going to say until I get another question. But the point that I wanted to make simply is, get people's attention. That's what education is all about. I firmly believe that we would all do better if we knew better. So you've got to communicate a message to people about what a better thing, or what are some better things they might do. And you have to figure out, how do you communicate that message? The tools are already here. We play games with this thing. We send messages with this thing. We hardly talk to each other face to face, because you go to dinner. You see people at dinner? What are they doing? How are you? And they're communicating via this. But education has got to be deeper than that. And what I'm trying to do at NBC is to communicate how we are failing to educate in many instances, but that young people like you guys are the exception. I feel like I've gone to church today where they say you're preaching to the choir. You guys obviously get it. You get it. You are here because someone sparked something in you. Your job now, I think, is to figure out how you share that spark with other people and educate others to be as enlightened as you've become. Thank you all.
Thank you, Rehema. So how about that for communicating your message? Great. So Rehema mentioned the Huffington Post and the impact that we can have through media outlets such as the Huffington Post. We're very lucky to have Lance Gould with us here. He's an executive special projects editor from the Huffington Post. So Lance, Huffington Post is an interesting website in the sense that it's very much, it's an open source platform that provides a voice for people that really want to get their message out there. So tell us a little bit about your work at the Huffington Post and how young people can utilize these types of platforms to maximize their reach.
Absolutely. I was going to walk around, but I think Rehema stole that thunder, so I'm going to go back to the drawing board here and just read from some notes. This is the age where everyone is a journalist. I'm sure many of you, as Rehema was just noting, will be posting about your experiences here to Facebook, tweeting your experiences here, so we're all citizen journalists now. So let me just tell you a little bit about the Huffington Post and how you can actually even use the Huffington Post to disseminate your message. The Huffington Post is one of the largest news websites in the world. We're bigger than the New York Times. We're bigger than CNN, and you have access to it. We are expanding internationally. We're in the US, the UK, Canada, France, Italy, Spain, and Japan. By the end of the year, we'll be in Brazil, India, Germany, and South Korea. So the message is, the platform is there. If you get on the platform, you can reach the whole world. We have some 80 channels. I'm sorry, there are many doors. There are many ways to look at our content. and to look at content generally. And I think by looking at what the Huffington Post, if I use the Huffington Post as an example, you can kind of get a sense of different ways to disseminate your content. We have front doors and side doors at the Huffington Post, and as you all do as well. A front door would be the HuffingtonPost.com main page and one of our 80 channels. We have HuffingtonPost.com/politics, sports, women, Black Voices, Impact, local channels in Denver, Detroit, New York. So those are all front doors. Those are destinations that people come to expecting to get reports on whatever that subject matter is. But then there are side doors. SEO is a side door. Social is a side door. Is everyone here familiar with SEO? Search engine optimization? So these are tools, effective tools that you can use to reach another audience, because we're all citizen journalists. So once you're putting your stuff out there, not only can you write, but you can also use these other methodologies to reach a larger audience. And that's essentially it. I'll answer more during a question session, but I would invite you all to blog for us, and I'll give you more information about how to do so at the end of the session.
Right, thanks Lance. So we now come to Nathalie Leroy. She works for the Department of Public Information Education Outreach Section. So Nathalie, we know that there are opportunities for young people to engage in the work of the UN, but tell us a bit more about some of these opportunities and how the UN engages young people in their own work.
Well, I think Rehema said it's about getting people's attention. I think for young people it's also about getting the UN's attention. And Lance said everyone is a citizen journalist. I'm not going to take the approach from the journalism point of view, but how do you, as young people, engage with the UN? I'm going to tell you two stories. Last month, there was a young girl who came to the UN to celebrate her birthday. The Secretary General gave her, as a birthday present, a leather-bound copy of the UN Charter. Normally, this is a present that's reserved for heads of state. I don't know if you've heard about Malala Yousafzai. On 12 July, it was her birthday, and Malala Day was organized here to celebrate her victory, and also to engage her, to support, actually, the action of the UN in the Global Education First initiative. She spoke at the UN, and her words still resonate very strongly with us. Let me quote her. Actually, what she said is that Malala Day was not her day. Today is the day of every woman, every boy, and every girl who have raised their voice for their rights. At the end of her speech, she had a call to action, and which reminded one of Nelson Mandela. I don't know if you know the quote by Nelson Mandela, education is the most powerful weapon to change the world. What Malala said is, let us pick up our books and pens. They are our most powerful weapons. One child, one teacher, one pen and one book can change the world. Education is the only solution. So I think most of you in the room have heard about Malala, but you may not have heard of a young man from Sierra Leone whose name is Cherno Ba. Has anyone heard about Cherno here in this room? Cherno Ba is from Sierra Leone. He was born in the slums of Freetown in Sierra Leone, lived his childhood in a brutal civil war, and became a refugee. He did, however, make it through school. So last year, at 27, he was appointed by the Secretary General to be the youth representative on the high-level steering committee of the Global Education First initiative. And he's been using the media that are available to him. Actually, he wrote in a recent Huffington Post article, people used to believe that young people didn't care about much. Youth had few opportunities to correct this misconception, as they were offered little involvement in shaping decisions that affected their lives. That's so yesterday. Today's youth are more connected, more aware, and more engaged than we probably ever have been. And on the one issue that is the most important for our future and the present, the issue of education, we are now taking over. So I just want to leave you with these two stories. You can also become engaged with the UN and make a difference. Thank you.
Great.
John, can I just make a correction?
Absolutely, yep.
I was just trying to see if I could get your attention when I told you that people who tweet are, the average age is 54. And I wanted to see if you're going to do a fact check on me. If you did, you'd find out I'm a little dyslexic and I transpose my numbers. It's more like 35. But it's still older than you are. So I just wanted to make that point. Thank you.
Thanks. So Nathalie just mentioned, getting the attention of the UN and how we can effectively do that. That seems to be a common thread in the discussion so far, is getting your audience's attention. And in order to effectively communicate your message, you have to have your audience's attention. So that transitions perfectly here for Bill Oberlander. Worked on many marketing campaigns throughout his career. So when we're talking about communicating your message, a lot of that really translates into marketing your message or making the pitch for why your message is really important. So Bill, if you could talk to us a little bit about how young people can market their work effectively to maximize their message and their reach.
Well, first of all, if I'm invited to the United Nations, I am definitely taking the podium.
Oh, wow.
Thank you, John. Thank you for having me here today. At the end of this presentation, the two messages you should take away are, yes, you have to get people's attention, but your message has to be brutally simple, right? Because the world out there is full of distraction and clutter. So even though your moving story that you have to tell is brutally simple, then you have to push it through this incredibly complex combination of social media channels, because there's so many new ones out there. For instance, Instagram just introduced video, which is a whole nother incredible opportunity to tell your story instantly with the use of your handheld device. Now, I did grow up in the private sector, and I did grow up as a designer. So again, I will not miss the opportunity for a little show and tell. I think, where is it? Oh, there I am. Okay, next slide. So that's me. Next slide. So I basically grew up 25 years selling everything from Intel microprocessors to Target miniskirts and everything in between. So 25 years of moving soda water and opening up checking accounts and selling cell phones and selling Snapple beverages to Kenneth Cole sneakers, everything under the sun I've been able to move in the last 25 years. And clearly I must know a little bit something about marketing and communicating your message. I do want to put in a quick story. When I worked at Olivier Mather, I left a meeting. It was with my San Pellegrino water client, and he had a water tasting at a 5-star hotel. Okay, everybody knows what a wine tasting is? This was a water tasting. So you can imagine the absurdity of luxury that we were experiencing over this 5-course dinner. On the way back to my office, to my agency, I had to walk around a family that was sleeping on a grate. It was in the winter, so they were staying warm by sleeping on a subway grate. And I thought to myself, you know what, maybe I can actually do something with my talent that is not selling toothpaste, but is actually promoting the thing that I love, which is New York City, and fighting poverty in New York City. Which brings me to Robin Hood. Q, thank you. So Robin Hood is 25 years old, and they spent a lot of time raising money and distributing grants to about 200 grantees every year. And the agency is, the organization is very focused on results. It started by a bunch of hedge fund traders. It's very financially services savvy. So everything they do gets incredible metrics rigor to make sure that the money that's donated is actually getting to the grantees that can fight poverty in the most effective way, the fastest. So that's who they were when I got there. And my job was to actually take that mechanism and turn it into a beloved brand, so that New Yorkers can really rally behind it. And I told my employer in my interview there 7 months ago, I said, if we can make Robinhood synonymous with the love that New Yorkers have for Nathan's hot dogs, then we've done something, all right? It turns out that Robinhood fights poverty in only the 5 boroughs. That's it. So we're taking care of the 10 million most important people on the planet. That might be a little jaded. So we do a lot of planning, and this is the campaign that broke about 2 months ago, Fight Poverty Like a New Yorker, because everything that we do at Robinhood is similar to the way New Yorkers behave. We're relentless, we're tenacious, we're impatient, and if you got a problem that can't be fixed, give it to a New Yorker. We'll fix it. But, like everything else in New York, something always comes up, and it was Hurricane Sandy. I started a week before Hurricane Sandy. Okay, that was my trial by fire. So a week after I started, we started planning for relief recovery. How many people here were in New York during Hurricane Sandy? Okay, so it wasn't Katrina, but it was bad. And this was actually, terrifying in the Bronx, in Brooklyn, but it was also terrible in New Jersey and in Connecticut as well, and Long Island. So the reach of our relief efforts had to go beyond the 5 boroughs for the first time in 25 years. So I just want to show something that we did on 12/12/12, the 12th of December, to get the word out and communicate our message.
My city of ruins. It began fittingly with Bruce Springsteen, singing once again about loss, longing, and hope along Jersey's battered shore.
New York, concrete jungle where trees are made of.
More than 5 hours later, it ended with Alicia Keys and a stage full of first responders on a night that combined music of the East and West, as in Kanye.
And we made it through the hurricane, so live and let die.
Okay, can you go to the next? So a simple message that New Yorkers were going to look out for New Yorkers. And everybody on that stage was, if they weren't from New York, they were a converted New Yorker. And again, the simple message was, New Yorkers, look out for each other. And that night we raised $71 million. All right, so the message was simple. Again, if you're going to communicate your message, keep it brutally simple. But then the complexity of social media, clearly we had incredible exposure on television. We worked with AMC, we worked with Clear Channel, we worked with Cablevision. There were a lot of people that brought to the table a lot of mass media, but we also had Twitter. Okay, and don't rule out Twitter. So 2.4 billion tweet impressions in 3 hours. And then, of course, the next day, it was all about YouTube. So again, we had radio, we had television, and then we had Twitter, and we had YouTube all coming together. And this is before we had Instagram video and Vine, which have basically come into the fore in the last couple of months. So that's who I am, and that's what Robinhood's doing right now, and hopefully I'll have more time to catch up later.
Great, thank you, Bill. Bill just mentioned, the value of keeping it simple and communicating your message, and I appreciate the concision from our panel today. Gives us a little bit of time for a question and answer session. So if there are any of you out there that have questions for any of our panelists, sure. Oh, yeah. Start with you, and then. Okay, you can come up to this mic or this mic over here. Take a few questions.
Hi. I'm Subhamadikari, I'm from Nepal, and my question is that, like, in the name of freedom of speech, like, there is a lot of hate, discrimination going on around, like, in internet and other media, even official media, right? Like burning flags, like burning religious texts, or, you know, like writing something about, like, other prophet or other, like, you know, saints or different things that has huge potential of instigating violence, and which remains unregulatory still, like, till today. So what do you think, like, society should deal with these issues, and, you know, is it even possible to deal with these issues?
We'll take one more question, then we can have come up to the mic. Yeah, up here.
Thank you for the host to give me the chance, and I'm a delegate from China, and I think that the guest just said that everyone can have the chance to disseminate and to send their information and message to the world, and so everyone is a journalist. And but I'm confused that everyone can be bombarded and inundated with millions of web pages and the information from the Twitter or the Facebook. So my question is that how do we select or to acquire the information that are really informative and useful for the youth? Thank you.
Great, thank you. And we'll take one final question.
This is for Ms. Ellis. In the United States, we spend a lot of time and money in regards to higher education, but in contrast, in comparison to the world, we also rank in the lower half of in the lower rankings. Can you answer why is that?
Okay.
Would you like me to answer now?
Yeah. Start with you, Rehema.
It's complicated, folks. But the answer is because other countries are more focused on it than we are. In South Korea, I was just looking at something the other day that points out that the school system is really centralized and regulated based on economic demands, and that the National Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Science and Technology are the same. They're the same. And at this point, businesses all over the world are looking to South Korea for engineers, technicians, scientists, mathematicians. They're not looking to the United States, and we are not producing them at the same rate. Again, to the point of why is that? Because following the Korean War, and when South Korea was in a shambles, one of the things that the leaders of the country did was they looked around and they said, what are we going to do? How are we going to build ourselves up? And they looked to education as one of the keys. They determined that they needed an educated workforce. And so they set out to make certain that even the most impoverished farmer, children from the least of homes, had an opportunity to the best of education. And they have succeeded in gangbusters in a way that is the rest of the world can look and take some notes from what they are doing. The United States right now is engaged in something called Common Core Standards. It's an effort to design an education system that would mean that all of the states in the United States would essentially be educating children pretty much the same way. We currently have in this country, before Common Core goes into place, an A in Massachusetts is different from an A in California or an A in a subject in Tennessee or in Colorado. What Common Core is attempting to do is to say an A is an A is an A, as is the case in countries around the world. Finland did the same thing. Finland is one of the countries where they have education is key. Here's another reason why in this country we don't have the kind of education system we would like. In Finland, they take their teachers from the top 10% of the graduating class of those in Teachers College. We take ours from the bottom third. The United States has not been focused on education as a profession to which everybody should be as highly trained as possible. And we're starting to see the impact, not starting. We've seen the impact of this in our schools for decades. But what's happening now is there are a lot of people who are trying to say there has to be education reform in this country if America wants to continue to be the greatest country in the world. So I hope I'm answering your question to a point, and that is we have not spent the amount of time focusing on education in America as we should have. And here's another thing I want to point out. It is not so much that other countries have skyrocketed ahead of the United States. It's more that we have been in a place that we were ahead of other countries for a long time, such as I'm talking about South Korea, and they had to build up. Well, they built up in a tremendously fast way. And we sort of been coasting. We're kind of going along to get along, we're roller coasting. But I should say this also. What those other countries who have been beating us in terms of education don't have, they don't have a Silicon Valley. They don't have a Steve Jobs. They don't have a Mark Zuckerberg. And they are working desperately to figure out how do they invigorate their young people who are awfully smart to be awfully creative. That's something that we as Americans have in our education system. Our kids are moving and grooving, trying to figure out the next crazy thing. And that's, I don't know if that's something that you can educate or if it's something that you inspire in people. And so other countries are still looking to America for that little bit of inspiration, and in some ways still chasing the American dream, trying to get their own American dream.
Great, thanks, Rehema. Anyone else want to answer any of these questions here? Sure, Nathalie.
I totally agree with Rehema on the wonders that South Korea have achieved. They have transformed themselves in one generation from an aid-receiving country to an aid-donning country. I've been to South Korea, I've worked with universities there, and it's absolutely amazing what they've achieved. I think that also, to respond also to one of the questions which had to do with hate and burning flags, we heard earlier Marta Lopez from the Alliance of Civilizations that explained how important it is to embrace the other and to recognize the diversity. She mentioned the International Day of Peace this year on 21 September. Every year is celebrated on 21 September. This year, the theme for the International Day of Peace is Education for Peace. And we adopted this theme in support of the Global Education First initiative, which I've already mentioned with Malala and Chair Norba. We think that education really comes first. What Bill said about helping the New Yorkers, you know, what we do at the UN, we help everyone around the planet. And we are aware of the fact that education is a major issue. There are still 57 million children out of school. The Global Education First initiative was launched by Secretary General Ban Ki-moon last year to actually try to achieve the Millennium Development Goals of getting every child in school, giving those children a quality education and ensuring that they would know about global citizenship, because it's all about respecting the other and building just, inclusive and peaceful societies. So if you want to be involved, there was a question also for the Alliance of Civilizations, what can we do for peace? Well, you know, on the International Day of Peace, observe a minute of silence, engage with your fellow students in schools, and reflect about difference and diversity and how we can build together this better world. Thank you.
I was just going to quickly respond to I think it was the first question about, with this incredible network of social medias, there's more clutter, there's more confusion, there's more messaging out there that is making it harder for your message to come through. And clearly, media saturation leads to disinformation, which, of course, as human beings, leads to desensitization. So we're becoming more and more jaded about how fast we scan our Twitter account, how fast we scan Instagram, Pinterest, all that. We're basically moving faster and faster and faster. And my only comeback to that is we just have to tell better stories. If your story is moving, it's heartfelt, it'll get the attention, because we're all humans, we still have the same triggers. So unfortunately, the bar is raised higher to tell better stories.
I just have a comment about conferences like this in general. I think it's really fun to come to New York and to get the chance to hear some people speak, but I think that it's really important in terms of one message that I can leave you with, is if you come to a conference like this and don't take action and don't take the lessons that you've heard disseminated here throughout the long day. And I realize it can be a long day. You may zone in and zone out. You may be on Twitter. You may be on Facebook. You may be checking your email. But if you come away and leave New York and do not take advantage of having been here, if you do not come away with 10 contacts from the youth that you're sitting around, if you do not exchange business cards and get an opportunity to meet and mingle and exchange ideas with these people, you will have wasted the opportunity. If you come away from this, we're talking about messaging, and I'm giving you a message here. If you come away and leave this conference and do not take the lessons and the opportunities about blogging on the Huffington Post, for example, but that's just one example. You have real opportunities here. You have some people on the panel and other panels throughout the day who are disseminating some important information, and you really have to take full advantage of being in a conference like this, being in a special opportunity like this, and to be able to bring this back to all your respective communities, all your respective countries. This is a really unique opportunity. Of all the conferences that take place, there's so many conferences that take place throughout the year that are interesting, but this one is one in which we have people from Liberia and people from Nepal and people from every continent all here together getting a chance to mingle. I'm just going to leave you with one other thought, or with the email address, impactblogs, one word, at huffingtonpost.com. Use the platform. It's just one of many platforms, but it's an opportunity for you to get out your message and to share it with the rest of the world.
Great. Thanks, Lance. Unfortunately, we're running out of time here, so I'll wrap up by proposing one final question. We'll do this Twitter style. So if you could briefly summarize your message to the audience today, much like a tweet, what would that message be?
Use the platforms, #YouthUN.
Anyone else want to take a stab at it?
Be engaged, you can make a difference.
Great.
I actually have a slide. Inspire, tell that moving story, evangelize, use that network of social networks, the network that we all have been speaking about today, and evangelize that peer group that you're trying to mobilize. And then finally, share the success of that movement, all right? Everybody wants to be on a winning team. So inspire, evangelize, celebrate.
I'm never good at 140 characters. But I would say listen. Listen to people around you. And I would say keep your eyes wide open. There is much to see. There is much to hear. And then share it.
Great. Thanks so much to all of you. I want to thank our wonderful panel again for this very enlightening conversation. I would say go forth and communicate your message. Thank you.
Yes.
What a very informational and inspirational panel. Let's thank again our great distinguished panelists from the media. Well, I'd like to quote the last panelist as we start this next session. Listen to people around you. Keep your eyes wide open. There's so much to see and keep, and share it. And with that, I want to welcome an exceptional youth to close our morning session. As I mentioned earlier, the Youth Assembly focuses on ways that you youth, can help move the MDGs and the post-2015 agenda forward. As organizers, we highlight dozens of amazing youth who lead new social ventures worldwide to inform and also inspire our delegates, you, to carry on your MDG-related work, and also so we can build a community that supports every youth leaders around the world. To conclude our morning session, we have invited a very special youth, Miss Morgan Wienberg, if she could come up to the podium. I see her coming up, and hello. And as she's coming here, I wanted to give you a brief introduction of Miss Morgan. She's a co-founder of the organization Little Footprints, Big Steps International Development Organization, or the LFBS. Miss Morgan, 6 months after a 7.0 magnitude earthquake struck Haiti in 2010, she was then 18-year-old as a high school valedictorian, set off to the devastated country. In 2011, LFBS became a registered Canadian charity, and it strives to provide Haitian children with appropriate shelter, food, and education through strategic projects intended to build sustainable lives. In just over a year's time, LFBS has saved over 50 children and changed the lives of many more. Morgan, who is now only 21, very young, lives in Haiti full-time and is the only Westerner on the ground, and her work is totally voluntary. Of course, her mom provides her the much-needed support that she needs to carry on her work there. She has been a recipient of the Governor General Academic Achievement Award and the first youth recipient of the Yukon Commissioner Award. She is a recent recipient of the Queen's Diamond Jubilee Medal, was recognized in Washington, D.C. as a finalist for the Burger Marx Foundation for Young Women Impacting Social Justice, and was awarded the Rotary International Paul Harris Fellowship Award for Humanitarian Impact. Without further ado, let's give Ms. Morgan a big, warm welcome.
Wow, thank you so much for this incredible opportunity to share and to listen. Well, I'm Morgan Wienberg, co-founder of Little Footprints, Big Steps. I'll just explain a bit about my organization and then show you a quick video. Little Footprints, Big Steps works for the protection of child victims of exploitation, homelessness, and abuse in Haiti. We have 3 main programs to accomplish this. First of all, we operate a transitional safe house, where these children can be removed from dangerous situations immediately and given the care that they need. We focus on getting these children a diverse education through vocational training, opportunities for personal growth, and steps towards social integration. But this safe house is different than an orphanage, in that the goal is to reunite children with their families and help those families build sustainable lives. Now, once a child is reunited with his or her family, we continue to support that child in an outreach program. Outreach workers hired locally visit these children regularly to ensure they maintain their health and education. We then work on a project with each family to create a livelihood that will help them become more sustainable and impact their development in their community. This might be animal husbandry, gardening, or a small business. Our third program is continued advocacy for children who are still suffering. And I suppose I'll just show a quick video so you can see what I'm talking about.
Haiti's orphanages were overflowing before the 2010 earthquake. Imagine them now. There's nothing new about how these children come to orphanages. Often they are not true orphans. They have homes and families, but no money for education or healthcare. Mothers give up their children, hoping that orphanages can provide what they cannot. They send their children into a web of good intentions and lies. Haiti's orphanage system is full of spiders that prey upon children. Morgan Wienberg knows this better than most. In 2010, she lived at a Haitian orphanage for 6 months. She watched as money flowed into the pockets of the spider while her children starved. She founded Little Footprints, Big Steps to end this. Her goal is to reunite children with their families and address the problems that cause their parents to abandon them. She is starting by giving them food and paying for their education, but she needs your help. There is a sponsorship program available on her site, with photos of all of her kids and how much it costs to feed and educate them for a year. Once she has a sponsor, she can work on returning children to their homes, because the best care for a child comes from their mother.
Well, this brings me really to the foundation of Little Footprints, Big Steps. Why did I create this organization? As an 18-year-old in 2010, I went to Haiti for the first time. This country had been devastated by an earthquake in January 2010, and I was drawn to its people. My first week in Haiti, I was introduced to an orphanage, and I was shocked by its horrific conditions. Yet the children in this orphanage struck in me a passion. And that passion, to this day, is what drives and motivates me. In 2011, 19 years old, I returned to Haiti on my own. And I chose to live alongside these 75 starving children who were living in this orphanage. There were no caretakers for these children. 5-year-olds would look after 2-year-olds, and 12-year-olds were cooking. The children had been stripped of all possessions. They had no self-esteem and no identity. Most children didn't even know their real name. They lived in constant fear of the woman who ran this orphanage. She would beat 2-year-old children until they blacked out and fell to the ground. This happened in front of me. And she would call vicious dogs to come and attack the fallen children. But despite this, hundreds of parents in Haiti entrusted this woman with the care of their children. Why? Based on the children and families I've worked with, there are 2 main reasons children are given up into exploitation, slavery, or the streets. The first reason is extreme poverty. The second, a lack of access to education. This is why children are being given up. Immediately, you can see the Millennium Development Goals of eradicating extreme poverty and achieving universal primary education will not only improve living conditions, but they will have a huge impact on child protection in developing countries. The woman running this orphanage would speak in churches in the most rural parts of Haiti, really poor farming communities. She would address their churches and claim to have an orphanage with foreign aid, with educational opportunities. She's telling parents their children can go to college. Their children will finally be well fed. And these parents, so engulfed in the poverty, are so desperate to believe her that they give up their children. Hundreds of them. This woman had been running that orphanage for over 20 years. Yet these parents, who send their children off in search of education and nourishment, these parents, 5 years later, will visit that orphanage to find their children emaciated and illiterate. Some parents return to that orphanage to find that their children were not there. Their children had been sold. And Little Footprints, Big Steps is currently helping 4 parents try to pursue their children who were trafficked. In April 2012, a father would be told that his daughter died in this orphanage because a block fell on her and she was left on the ground. Some parents I've spoken to were physically beaten when they tried to reclaim their child. Others were told they had to purchase their child's birth certificate. All this suffering and abuse is the result of an attempt to escape poverty. But what exactly is poverty? Because if we want to eradicate poverty, we should understand what it is. Imagine that poverty is a heavy metal door that's fallen on parts of society. It's holding us back from the world we imagine, from a world with peace and equality. But in order to lift this door, to remove the barrier of extreme poverty, there are 2 things that need to happen. First, those who are held down by poverty, the families and children who are pinned under its weight, they need to push. They need to push against poverty and fight for their rights. But some of these people who are so deeply depressed and oppressed, some of these people are afraid to push because suffering is all they've known. The children in this orphanage didn't know that they have the right to eat more than once a day. They didn't know that they have the right to live without being beaten. Those children didn't know they had the choice to live with their families. But if someone Someone who walks freely, who has seen progress, who has hope and can envision a better world. If someone were to reach through their differences and reach across that distance between us, someone could make those who are suffering see. You could give them hope. You could inspire them to push. And that's the second thing that needs to happen. Those of us who are free and able, who have been able to taste progress and see that change can happen, we need to mobilize ourselves. And we need to reach out and pull the door of poverty off of those victims. There's a saying in Haiti, main en pile fait chez pas loup. Many hands make the load lighter. We need to create global networks, like we're doing right now with everyone in this room, and work together to achieve these Millennium Development Goals, to achieve a world of peace and equality. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Morgan Wienberg, for your amazing and inspiring work. We'd like to open the floor, although we're tight on time, we'd like to open the floor for a few questions to Ms. Wienberg. We can take 3 questions. If you can raise your hand quickly. And are there any questions? More. Yep. Yeah, we have a question here from.
I don't have a mic, but I really do think that programs like this are how we represent and move from words to actions. So may I please ask if it's possible, Chuma, if you can put up the website URL. It was littlefootprintsbigsteps.com or and are they tax deductible contributions? littlefootprintsbigsteps.com. Please share that with others. Here is a young person your age doing something amazing that helps you understand how these great ideas you've had can be moved into reality in ways that are compelling. This is a compelling issue. You should support it, and you should be spreading the word about it. Thank you very much, Ms. Wienberg. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, as our chair mentioned, it is indeed a work that we should support. So we invite everyone to go to her website and support her work, whether through voluntary contributions or monetary contributions. We really hope you will support her. As you can see, passion can fuel your work. Through her example, she's able to contribute to more than one MDG, including education and poverty. When we channel love into a greater love, as she's demonstrated, and energy into a positive passion, this passion can fuel you, and let this fuel you and mobilize you. Thank you, Ms. Wienberg, for your work. You are a miracle worker, and we hope all of you here can support her and take her example and become miracle workers yourselves in your local communities. Think globally, act locally. And by being young miracle workers, you are helping to contribute in achieving the UN MDGs and the post-2015 agenda. As the quote that she said in Haiti, translated in English, many hands can make the load lighter, and together we can achieve world peace. And with this message, I'd like to conclude our morning session. I wanted to mention that the Impact Repertory Theater, who was supposed to perform for us this morning, couldn't make it today, so they performed yesterday at the Salvation Army during the Google Mass Hangout. And also, we weren't able to play the 8 Goals for Africa song video, but I do encourage you to take a look at it, maybe during lunch or this afternoon when you have a free time. This song was a song and a call to action to achieve the UN MDGs. 8 of Africa's best-known musical talents lent their voices in support of the UN campaign in South Africa to encourage commitment to the achievement of the 8 MDGs.